Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Jason Myles, on another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. If you're enjoying what you see, please make sure to hit that notification bell so you're alerted whenever we go live, as we're constantly adding new episodes, doing cross streams with other channels, and adding just new programming. Like we're going to do a show this Friday. So you got to hit the notification bell so you're notified. Also, before we start, I want to remind people that tickets are available for the live meet and greet for the book launch that I'll be doing in the San Francisco Bay Area. I might even be joined by one of our guests today. Ben Burgis, I think, is coming up with me. I'm not exactly sure. But the book is out wherever you are watching or listening to this show. There are links in the description to get tickets to the show. It's going to be a fun, intimate affair. Chris Contos from Machine Head's going to be there. Sorry, Chris, your name was spelled wrong on the original flyer. It has been corrected. Please don't be mad at me. Machine Head, Forbidden, the Boneless Ones, Attitude Adjustment, Craig LaCicero that played in Death, definitely in Forbidden, and the Boneless Ones also, Man Made God, Rick Hunolt from Exodus. Original guitar player of Exodus. Gonna have a fun talk. Definitely gonna have some questions afterwards. I look forward to seeing your face in the place. Now that we got that out of the way, let's bring in our guests. Coming all the way live from a fancy house with a magical toilet in Orange County. Please welcome University of California, Irvine professor, Catherine Liu. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Jason?
I'm okay. And also joining us, professor at the University of Illinois, Urbana. I think that's the campus he's at. No, not Urbana. Champaign? No. He's saying something, I can't hear him. Whatever it is, it's a small town in Illinois. He was filling a quota. Definitely was. And he thinks that allows him to culturally appropriate his backdrop. So please welcome Professor Toure Reed.
What a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Jason. Who would know that we were friends from that?
I thought it was what city is it?
I'm in Bloomington Normal, so at Illinois State.
Illinois State.
Smack dab, equidistant between Champaign, Urbana, and Peoria.
Only 100,000 people know where that is.
I know. Well, equidistant between St. Louis and Chicago, too. Going the other way.
It's a little better, but then only people that remember Nelly know that.
Well, half of it. Only people who remember Nelly know half of that. But don't forget Sexy Red.
Oh, I will. Yeah, definitely. She actually was the face of our thumbnail for the Saturday show. We want to do a women in hip hop show. We're trying to find a hook because, let's be honest. When we put these things together, we want to find a hook. Sometimes it's not even necessarily what we're going to talk about. We just, So I think the hook is hip hop over sexualizing women. It's just a picture of her face. There you go. Let's see if anybody cares.
Well, you've seen that Key and Peele bit, Mother Majesty, season 4, episode 1. It's the very last vignette in that episode. Keegan plays a Sexy Red Light character.
Yes,
he's doing Nicki Minaj, right?
Yes. I do remember that.
It was pretty brilliant.
I actually like going back and watching old Key. As Jordan Peele is going to be a big kind of person we talk about on this show today.
We really like to watch the NFL draft, the fake NFL draft.
Have you seen the real NFL players that are named after their more ridiculous names?
Yes. No.
There's real players.
My husband is obsessed with the NFL, so we watch whatever we can. It's about the NFL.
There is a player, the Broncos just cut him. His real first name is Lil Jordan.
Wow.
Wait a minute. His first name is Lil?
Lil Jordan is his.
And his last name is Jordan?
No. His
Lil
first
Jordan
name.
is Lil Jordan. Oh, okay.
Oh, that's all you need to say. Should fucking...
Yeah.
Well, listen, both A Pimp Named Slickback and Celadine D were already taken. So
there's like a whole rationale that the parents had, like why that made sense. I'm like, whatever. That poor kid.
It's thoughtful. It's very thoughtful.
Lil Jordan.
I'm not going to hate on anybody's name, though, because my parents named me Toure Fanon. So that's a lot to deal with.
It's a lot to deal with, yeah.
Did you just walk around with a grimace from kindergarten to 5th grade?
Well, I mean, the nice thing about being a Black Gen Xer is I wasn't the only one in my school with an African name.
There's everyone named Fanon.
I was the only one with Fanon. But
that's your middle name?
That's your middle name? Yep. And there's another Toure that I went to school with. I knew 2 other Toures actually in Atlanta. A couple of Lumumbas. Yeah.
I told Jason I told Jason this, but there were some people at college who thought I was from the South, and my name is Kathy Lou.
And they called you Miss Kathy.
Miss Lou. Miss Lou.
Well, if they really thought, if they were from the South, they would have called you Miss Kathy.
Really? Because
yes.
Stephen Spriggs, my best friend in college, was from Atlanta, and he would call me Miss Lou. But yeah, I get it, Miss Kathy, right?
Well, Miss Kathy, I will preface this show by saying I watched Toussaint put this month together. So shout out to Toussaint for trying to put as many shows together. It's very hard work to do this. We just recently hit 15,000 subscribers, and we were looking at the show growth today, and we're like, damn, this is pretty cool. But it's really hard to do this. So shout out to Toussaint for doing that. But when she was trying to put the show together, she goes, Jason, I don't know what to talk about. And I was having me and Bert Cooper were fussing with each other. And then I think before I was fussing with Bert Cooper, I think I was fussing with Toure on the phone. And he had made some really interesting comments about Get Out. So I just want you to know, Toure, that you are the inspiration.
I'll take that.
You're my inspiration.
Those were good questions.
I was just watching Hollywood Shuffle. I mean, it's not a horror film, but I was feeling it. I watched Hollywood Shuffle yesterday, and then today I'm going to Get You Sucker, and next in the queue will be Death by Temptation to bring it back.
Ooh, a trauma film.
Okay, yes. I'm so unprepared. I'm just so
That's okay. Unprepared. You know some Black people, so you're fine.
Okay, good.
At least you know them in passing. With the success of Jordan Peele in movies like Get Out, has horror become a race reductionist genre? Has the rise of the idea of elevated horror caused the horror genre to try too hard to make movies with a message and not movies that scare us? Catherine, Toure, first question. I'm trying to...
Yes, Regis. Now I still have my lifelines intact, right?
You are going to need your lifelines for this.
Okay.
This is okay. I'll be very honest. I put a bunch of questions on here that are fucking ridiculous. I did put 2 serious ones, and I put some fucking ridiculous ones. Do you want me to ask you the silly ones first, or the serious ones first?
Dealer's choice.
No, I can't remember. I couldn't tell the difference between the so just go ahead.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I have my thing that I want to say, so I'm just waiting for you to ask whatever question, and I'm going to go right into what I want to say.
Like, that's a really good public speaker. She's like, it doesn't matter what I'm here to talk about. Bitch, I'm going to say what I want to say.
I'm going to pretend to listen to you and nod, and then be like, okay, this is the point I want to make.
Man, you are just making all the crazy rich Asian stereotypes come to life right now.
It's also an academic conference.
Yeah.
Once Ben Burgis comes here, it'll be an official academic conference.
I just want to say that I'm trying to keep it together, even though Toure's background is triggering me. Because of its Oriental Shojin screen, whatever that is.
Courtesy of Amazon, and it comes out of the microaggressions catalog.
If it would be funnier if Toure's significant other like peeked behind there and she was all geisha'd out. Like a fan. She had like a fan. All right, I'm gonna ask the question. I'm gonna stop.
Okay, stop.
Catherine Toure, you two are people of color, allegedly. Is the racism that we actually face in day-to-day life as scary as people like Jordan Peele like to project onto the screen? Is this even a good allegory of what racism feels like? How much racism do you guys face that is actually frightening compared to something economic precarity? To Catherine, I'll start with you.
How much racism do I actually face that's actually scary?
Because you live in Irvine.
On a day, like in the present time, or when, like in the past,
like 1857.
I don't know. Okay, so when I went to Mount Vernon High School, and everyone called me names because the African American girls rightfully saw that I did not qualify to wear a training bra yet, that was scary. But on a day-to-day basis, yeah, there's like. The last time I felt like I was really scared for someone else was when I saw a white lady yelling at a Chinese lady on a New York subway. And but like the day-to-day frightening thing about capitalism is much scarier than racism, because I'm protected now by my age, by where I live, by all this other stuff. I don't. Jordan Peele, is he trying to say that racism is the horror, the core of the horror film? Maybe, but the thing that I wanted to say about this was that this is getting where I wanted to say his white people. He's got white people all wrong. I'll just keep it at that.
Oh, this is gonna get good. To Raven said, "Look at," he's like, "Oh, let me get a pin out."
It's a class thing. It's not like people being white are scary. It's like he's trying to make rich people in Get Out look really terrifying. They're actually like blood-sucking, soul-sucking vampires. But I feel like rich people are really scary these days. Rich people are actually really scary.
Sid Nanda says, "I would have watched Get Out a third time." That's a joke, because remember the dad says, "I would have voted for Obama a third time." Toure, racism and its reality. I mean, we talked about Get Out, and you made an interesting point about Get Out. It's a movie that you actually enjoy.
I did, and I guess my discomfort with the film is harmonizes with Catherine's insofar as I like the film very much. Partly because I don't think I'd ever seen anyone take an interracial relationship as the jump off point for horror. And going home when you're a young person to meet your significant other's family can just be scary, no matter if race is an issue or not. But certainly in that context, it would have been. But what bugged me about the film initially was less the film and the audience reaction, where many people seem to have been taken by the notion that white people want to appropriate black people. But the film made plain that it was upscale white people, right? So this is in step with what Catherine was saying. And these kind of white elites got off on appropriating black bodies. And there's something to that. Obviously it's the horror show ridiculous version of that. But nevertheless, what threw me off was apparently Jordan Peele hadn't thought about it in terms of class. He had thought about it, as Catherine said, much like the audience, in terms of race. As far as and race period, right? Whereas it would clearly be race and class, or just class, as Catherine was saying, but certainly not race period, right? As on this matter of the quotidian experiences of black people or people of color and racism, and whether or not they're scary, I don't know about scary as much as infuriating. Some of the most outrageous experiences that I've had over, let's say, the last year were definitely racist experiences, but they weren't anything that was going to, result in my going to prison or being murdered or anything. It was sort of the ironic racism of liberal white anti-racist, right? And that's illustrative of my class position. The last time I really had to deal with racists on a regular basis as peers was in my 20s. Insofar like classic racist, not racist, anti-racist. But like, as I mentioned before, David Duke voters, I was in my 20s when I had to work with those people, and they were horrifying. But interestingly enough, the liberal white anti-racists that I've had to deal with in recent years were just as racist. And they're in many ways much more infuriating because they were well educated, they're enlightened, and of course because they had read How to Be an Anti-Racist and everything that Robin DiAngelo had ever written, they convinced themselves that stereotyping people of color positively wasn't racist. So you couldn't say, so this is really racist, the stuff that you're saying, things that you believe, as I told them within a couple of weeks of meeting them, because they professed to be sensitive to those issues, and it couldn't hear it, right? So the quotidian experiences, at least in my adult life or recent adult life, have been more infuriating than scary.
Can I?
Of
I
course.
just remembered my most like intense encounter with a racist as an adult was when I received hate mail when I was an assistant professor from probably someone who was a senior professor because they'd seen all my files.
Wow.
And I had gotten a multicultural grant. This was the 90s when multiculturalism was really great. And he said, and she got a multicultural grant, and we should be ashamed of ourselves for hiring her. She's a complete sham. And it was an anonymous letter that was slipped under my door. And you know what? I was furious. Actually, when Toure said the anger thing, I was like, oh yeah, I wasn't scared. I was furious. I wanted to confront him, but there were so many different layers of bureaucracy. Like I was told I wouldn't, I shouldn't do it. I was like, I wanted to just say to him, like, what the hell is this? You're a complete sham. By the way, he's like still an associate professor. He was a complete fucking blowhard, never got promoted, couldn't write a thing, but he wanted to like call me out for being like a fake scholar and an affirmative action hire. And that was but what it was, everyone else was white too. Their fear was what was really infuriating to me. They kept saying, don't do anything, let HR do anything. They did nothing. No one did anything. I thought like the dean was going to come and talk to us about how we can't behave this way. They did nothing. They swept it under the rug. And I was willing to go toe to toe with them and say, did you send this to me? They didn't bring it up in a faculty meeting. They pretended it didn't happen. So I don't think like your normal white academic gets hate mail when they're an assistant professor. But when I've talked to a number of women, sort of women of color, people have actually, this happens to us. And it's like what's infuriating about it is you don't get to confront people because of your university bureaucracy. And I was too young to realize how it was going to play out. And I should have just said, you know what, you're full of shit,
Well,
But,
can I piggyback off
that was
Catherine's point?
horrible. Yeah.
Because I've had 4 workplace incidents total. One that I've mentioned, from last year, and one when I was an assistant professor, and it sort of been between my first and second year, and I'd written about that one in a piece that I wrote in Jacobin, why I'm still thinking about Amy Cooper. Then I had another one in which I had to file a complaint with the office of the relevant office. I don't want to say what the office name, but go through the bureaucracy,
Right.
to file a complaint against the dean for creating a hostile work environment for me.
And what happened?
I kind of won that, but I'll come right back to that. And then in around that time, because it's evidence of the hostile work environment, I cursed out a colleague who I do not speak with. I won't say what year, but it's been a long time since that incident. And then, of course, the most recent was in the last year. And that one, the most recent one, was less about me personally, right? The one that Catherine mentioned was about her, and the other 3 that I referenced were also about me. But the one last year wasn't about me personally. It was some committee work. But in all 4 of those incidents, I confronted the person, right? In the first incident, it was a white woman who I'd seen do some really heinous stuff to a Middle Eastern colleague of mine. And I was super cautious about how I approached her. I strategized and talked to friends of mine, many of them white, for weeks about how best to approach this issue for fear that she would turn me into Bigger Thomas. So I walked in backing up, right, in that confrontation. In the case where I reported the dean, that obviously went through a bureaucratic process, but I had to be professional the whole time, of course. And the instance where I cursed out the colleague, obviously I didn't handle that in the traditional professional way, but I'd laughed off for years the disrespectful stuff he had put at my feet. I just figured, he was the douchebag is how I looked at it. And that disrespect, like your colleague, was about him and his insecurities that he was projecting onto me. But there was a bridge too far. And I couldn't, my blackness would not allow me to accommodate that bullshit at that point, right? And interestingly enough, even when you approach it, when you confront people, the outcomes aren't necessarily what you'd want them to be. Going through the bureaucratic process was in many ways the most satisfying, not emotionally, but it's much more difficult, I think, to cast someone who handles those problems professionally, going through the bureaucracy, as a malcontent. But that happens, right? I mean, so when you confront these people professionally or not professionally, either way, then the people in the periphery or the person even that you have reported will cast you, the victim, as a malcontent, right? So that, again, is not so much scary as it is infuriating.
It's not scary at all.
No.
And one of the things that this guy did was he was a bully, and he would try to scare people in the department, and people were scared. This was at the University of Minnesota. He was like 6'4". They're like Minnesota nice guys. No, just yelling, just like really being loud. When you're a 6'4" guy and you yell at, women who are tiny, and the men who are, not so assertive, that he intimidated everyone in the department. And I thought, I didn't want to play that game, but I was actually literally told, you can't change a bully, so it's best to just leave that part of the playground to him. And they transferred me to the department. I'm serious.
That's what the school said?
This is what the HR person said, and they transferred me out of the department.
They talked to you like a grade school vice principal?
Like a large, white woman from Minnesota, who was just like, they have all the weapons of passive aggression, and they just wanted me to adopt those weapons. I mean, Toure, it's cold comfort. It's some comfort to me to know that there isn't like some kind of catharsis if I had confronted him. But I always think like the cutting off of my instincts, the trying to protect me, but actually but I didn't file a complaint because it was anonymous, right?
Right.
So I had to report it to the police, but there was nothing that was done. There was no investigation, nothing. And so I actually never filed a complaint in the university against anyone, thinking that there was going to be some kind of process where the dean or somebody, the chair, was going to talk about how, this kind of behavior is not acceptable. And they kept telling me, we'll take care of it.
Well, that is one. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to bring in our third and final guest of the evening. Also a scary person. He's a Jew. Please welcome Ben Burgis.
Yeah, for the desperately needed white guy perspective.
Ben, I was waiting for you to ask this question.
Yeah,
so I'll let you lead off this next round of questions. Who is your favorite vampire of color?
I don't know. I mean, Blackula and Black Dracula. I mean, those are the two. No, I have no idea. What's the
Dawn has some vampires of color.
That's true.
Blade is kind of a vampire.
Yeah, I mean, if Blade counts, I suppose Blade. There's the
Brooklyn vampire, Eddie Murphy.
No. That was Mick Ashford.
Yeah, no, it'd be really funny to say that one of the 200 random vampires who gets dusted and From Dusk Till Dawn was my favorite vampire of color. Be like, no, the one that was like 20 minutes after they get to the bar, like you see him for like 30 seconds and he makes a quip. That was my favorite.
Paul Prescott said there's only Eddie Murphy. Toure, who was your favorite vampire of color?
That's tough. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's going to have to be someone from the Blade universe in the grand scheme of things, but it's kind of hard not to give the nod to William Marshall, who, being Blackula, set the stage for black vampires, right? He was a pioneering figure and a Shakespearean actor, right?
You guys are all wrong so far. Let's see.
I mean, not counting.
Oh my God, there's a right answer.
Answered everything.
Like not counting Blade, who's ambiguous. I mean, he's the Daywalker.
Mhm.
Like, there don't seem to be a lot of vampires of color in the Blade universe.
By
and large, the Blade universe vampires seem to be like very white.
But there's two different Blades too, right? I mean, there's Wesley Snipes.
Oh yeah.
And then there's Sticky Fingers. And it's also just great to have an opportunity to say and earn a Sticky Fingers.
There are Asian vampires, Sune. Catherine, who's your favorite vampire?
There are a lot of Asian vampires, but I don't know them by name. No, you know what? Dracula himself, the Count, is from Romania, so he's kind of color.
Wow.
He's a person of Romania.
He's Balkan. Yeah, he might even be Gypsy. He might even be Roma. So the original Dracula.
I mean, it's like the cock. Yeah, okay, that's all right. That seems very white to me. I mean, I understand these are all fake categories.
These are all fake categories, and I just want to say something like even the black vampires are white because finally, like, vampires are white. Okay,
Look. The only correct answer was Grace Jones.
It's Grace Jones.
Grace Jones and Vamp.
Okay.
Grace Jones and Vamp
Okay.
is the only vampire of color.
Was Cleavon Little a vampire in that movie?
He was a familiar. In Once Bitten.
Yeah, that's it. Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
really homophobic movie.
Dracula is not himself a gypsy, but in I think the book and in the Francis Ford Coppola movie, like he has like the Count's gypsies. In fact, it's like a little bit racist. Like it's like he's got like he's controls all these like rats and bats and wolves and also gypsies.
Yeah, that's bad. Like the Roma people,
right, exactly. It's like that's like an actual ethnic group. I mean, you're sort of treating it like this is just like a horror movie trope in itself.
You know what?
Contrasted
we cancel Coppola right now.
Ben, I just noticed you had your Phil Donahue microphone.
Yeah. No, this is
you
I
put
can
your head
start
down.
walking around the audience, with like who's your favorite vampire?
So there's more questions that are ridiculous. Are Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Leatherface, and Jason Voorhees racist? I mean, Jason did kill that brother singing on the toilet.
And he was Afro-Puerto Rican, so it's a twofer.
Oh, so Jason is intersectional in his race.
No, that's not what intersectional means, Jason Myles. Jason Myles, you do not know what intersectional actually means.
He had two sections on his toilet murder.
I mean, it would be intersectional if he was going to kill Afro-Puerto Ricans, like not because they were black and not because they were Puerto Rican, but because they were both, right? That would actually be intersectional.
Yes, that would make his murders intersectional, but it would be intersectional if he were like Afro-Puerto Rican, but also had Asperger's.
He had something to be singing while he boo-booed because they're
very musical people, Jason.
I think that's why he killed him. That was the intersection because he was like, oh, there's a black guy taking a shit. We'll let him go use the bathroom.
When you think of love, do your heart.
ooh baby, ooh baby, and I was like, who the hell sings to their girlfriend in an outhouse? Like, have you ever had to? I had to work so many festivals, and Coachella is like the worst festival. And I remember once there was a girl like that was crying for me to tell them to empty the porta potty, and I was like, I don't even have that channel on my walkie-talkie to get these people down here. She was like, please. She's like, it's coming out of the top, because I was like, I can't. I don't know what to tell you.
Listen, you've got this thing about.
So, do you recommend that she start singing to? Is that the connection?
Sing to the turd. Ooh baby, ooh baby.
Yeah. I don't think Freddie is especially racist. I mean, he's got. I'm trying to think here. Like, not that there are that many non-white characters in any of those movies, but like, there's what's his name, Kincaid, and
Kincaid, and then there's a black girl in part 4.
Yeah, and I don't recall off the top of my head Freddie's like making any particularly racist quips when he kills them. So, no, he does say at one point, right? Because it's the with the black girl, right? Sorry, I take that back. Doesn't he say like, "Ooh, dark meat"?
Oh.
Am I remembering that right? I feel like he says that.
He does say that.
Okay, all right. Freddie's pretty racist.
Then he's
Fair
racist.
enough.
Yeah,
I mean, that's obviously the worst thing about him.
Well, that when he was governor of Virginia.
Freddie was
when he wore blackface.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Joke.
Michael Myers, is he racist? I don't think he's killed any black people. I think Michael Myers.
So you're talking about like John Carpenter Michael Myers, because like the Rob Zombie Michael Myers does kill at least one black person, right? Like,
of course.
I think
we're looking at you, Rob Zombie. You didn't have to do that shit.
In middle of nowhere.
I fucking hated.
Okay, but the thing is that now you're saying like if there were no black characters for them to kill, does that mean they're not racist, or is the whole film racist because there's underrepresentation?
If a black person sings in the toilet and there's not a person
in fact, if I'm remembering correctly, I didn't watch his sequel because I hated the first one so much.
Terrible.
And I only ever watched the first Rob Zombie Halloween once, and it made me really angry. But if I'm remembering correctly, I think Michael Myers in that movie killed somebody also in the bathroom, and I believe that guy might have been black. I couldn't swear to it, but I think that might be right.
You know who else dies in the shitter? Remember Scream 2?
Yeah,
Omar
sure.
Epps.
Omar Epps is on.
That's right. Yeah, at the beginning of the movie. Yeah,
that explains so much.
Who believes that all black people want to interact and chit chat when they're taking a shit?
Hollywood.
Well, I mean, to be fair, in Scream 2, that wasn't a voluntary interaction.
I mean, but still, if I heard somebody giggling in the stall next to me, the last thing I do, I'm gonna put my ear to the stall and listen to it, but I'm shitting too. Who the fuck does that? I'm trying to get in and get out of a crowded public bathroom. I'm not trying to sit in there and contemplate life's mysteries, listening to shit.
Literally.
Literally. I'm trying to drown all of it out.
Yeah, but people in the Midwest talk in the bathroom.
Like to you?
Really?
Well, I don't try to have a conversation, but you're standing there at the urinal and some dude comes up next to you and starts talking. It's like, this is not what's supposed to happen.
As somebody, I'm going to do
from the Midwest.
Yes, somebody who actually is from the Midwest, I will say, does
urinal
at the bathroom mean like at the urinal?
Yes.
Or like in a stall?
No
right?
conversation, when your junk's out. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
It is
no, fair enough. I'm saying like I think that like sometimes at the urinal, sure. In a stall, no. I can't think of it.
I don't need to hear how you doing, buddy.
Hey, right? Sounds like you're a little clogged up back there.
Let's just wrap it up and have a conversation at the sink.
Yeah. I cannot recall a single stall conversation ever. I will say that.
I mean, I've thought things. I've never
urinal conversation. Sure. I mean, that's
but that's too much.
Yeah.
Urinal conversation is too much.
Fair enough.
Sink conversation is fine.
Okay.
You can be in the bathroom. That's okay. but you can't be involved in relieving yourself in any way, shape, or form.
So
I
somebody
think that's very bad etiquette. That's like bad etiquette. What are they just trying to be like super friendly?
Yes. And then they want to shake your hand after. Just let it go. Let it go. I don't even want to dap up. You know what I'm saying? No fist bumps.
That is a hell of a conversation you had in the pisser. Like, hey, you got a strong stream there, buddy.
No, strong handshake.
Yeah, look at that. You got a real good prostate there, man. I had some
Maybe they were not just wanting to talk, Toure. You're just not picking up on the signals.
You never know.
If that's a signal, that's
I think you might be being a little naive, like when he asked you about the weather.
That was code. That was code for a stall talk.
Just saying.
Awesome.
Bathrooms in the Midwest.
Jason kills Kelly Rowland. So it says Jason kills Kelly Rowland. See, racist.
Well, okay, but I mean, Catherine's point does seem like a good one here. Like, what's the rule? Are you supposed to have like only
proportional representation?
Look, I want anti-racist murderers.
Well, then
what's
that?
Look,
the anti-racist slasher would make sure that there were no racial disparities in the victim pool. That they like
13.4%.
Exactly. Oh my God! I think I killed one too many Black people today. I'm gonna have to go kill them. I'm gonna have to look for someone Latinx today because they're like 35 to 38%, or maybe 40% right now.
Well, to that point about killing Black people in horror movies, I can't believe I wrote this. Does representation matter in horror in any genre? Like
as victims or murderers?
Oh, definitely as murderers
or monsters.
So there's movies like the first Candyman, and I was watching that documentary. I won't say the name of it. Fuck it. I won't say the name of it. It's like the only one. But they were talking about Candyman, and they would do this like finally representation. I'm like, is this?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean? I'm like, is that really where we want to be when Jesus comes? Like, I grabbed my son. I was like, hey, America's changing.
You can
grow up. Do we get an Asian American serial killer?
Well, we get The Ring, and that's what you get with Asian.
Well, that's like from Asia. That's from Asia. I'm talking about Asian American.
Yeah. I mean, right. So and this is like a particularly strange version of representation too, because it's like, okay, so like I don't know, there's like a time when science fiction movies had a whole lot of Asian representation in the supervillains. Like, is that progressive and good? It's like, I don't know. It's great that they gave that role to Big the Merciless. Like really showed it,
I was gonna say, is Max Van Sydow doing Yellowface in?
Yeah, exactly.
In Flash Gordon. Were you offended by that?
Yeah. What? I'm just as much as offended as I am by the Shoji screens behind Toure.
I bring my own microaggression wherever I go.
Like, when I watched that,
I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Toure started doing that because when he went on TMBS.
Not quite. So what happened was I was set up. I was already scheduled to go on the Michael Brooks show, and I had ordered the screen because I don't want people in my fucking house unless I've invited you. So that's why I wanted the screen, and it was delayed, so it came the day after the Michael Brooks show. So then
I remember
the mythology was that I got it because of the Michael Brooks show. But actually, I got it before the Michael Brooks show.
Yeah, because I thought I remembered you objected. You like talking about like people in the chat doing what people in the chat do.
It was my dad and Michael Brooks were talking about that, and then Michael Brooks and I revisited it. Yeah.
There we go.
That's what happened. And there's a meth lab back there, right? My whole man cave smells like cat pee. There you go. That's how I'm going to retire as a public employee with all that meth.
Are you Heisenberg? You're actually Heisenberg.
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to be Pinkman.
This is the best comment. This is the best comment I think any of us have ever gotten. Right here. Never has a discussion regarding racism been so hilarious. Thank you. Thank you, Bad Lefty.
Oh, I feel
Fine.
so. Oh, that made my day. That made my
Right?
day.
Like who
Yeah.
knew? You guys had no idea what you were getting into.
So you would you would be like you'd be selling like the really primo like blue meth, right?
Oh yeah, I've got pictures of myself having been to Albuquerque, and I'll be in Albuquerque in less than a week.
And I'll be in Albuquerque in less than a week
with
selling
my blue meth. So I've got some upstairs.
Which is like the best thing about that show, just the premise that it's like there's all this like Mexican drug stuff in the show. It's like, yeah, no Mexican person ever thought of this before, right? That they can, like,
behind the fucking thing right now making all the meth. Dre is also a capitalist. Like, don't get it.
Yeah, just on the DL though.
It's extremely racist. Breaking Bad. The guy's name is Walter White. After all,
and that's appropriating the name of NAACP president Walter White.
There you go.
There
exactly.
Once again,
and besmirching it.
And then his code name is Heisenberg, who's actually a Nazi. So there you go.
When are we ever going to get
Heisenberg
ours?
really a Nazi? Though?
He was sort of a Nazi. He was he was like, people who are defenders of him will be like, no. See, he was never a member of the party and this and that. It's like, okay. Right. Okay, but he did try to build an atomic bomb for Hitler. So if that doesn't make you quite a Nazi, that maybe makes you like uncomfortably adjacent to being a Nazi.
Yeah.
But what if you're incompetent about it? Right? I mean, if you're incompetent about it, doesn't that change things? See, that was part of my master plan. I wasn't really trying to build that bomb because I understand the laws of gravity and polarity and shit. So if I wanted to build a bomb, I'd have built the bomb. You know what I'm saying? I ain't want to build a bomb, really. Because, Heisenberg sounded like Charlie Murphy.
Sure. Yeah.
It's my guess.
Probably.
Why not?
All right, so basically we're saying Breaking Bad, extremely racist.
Everything is
extremely racist show at every level.
Extremely racist. I know. I heard a whole academic paper on this, so I think
God, that's
really
not fun anymore.
Really on Breaking Bad being racist.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
What about Better Call Saul, which is better?
No, I don't know. She wasn't talking about that, but she was basically saying what Ben just said as a throwaway, but as a whole paper about how it had to be a white guy who really knew how to make the right meth. But I'm telling you, I feel like Breaking Bad was very anti-racist because my favorite character was Gus Frings because he's the manager. Like he's in charge. Yeah. He's the boss. And Walter White is just like a, division of labor guy. And Frings, Pollos Hermanos is really...
So the paper was mad.
Breaking Bad is, I just like the way that rolled off. Not Breaking Bad is anti-racist. It's like that time.
Wait. Let's play with this for a second because I liked that show until Walter White killed Fring because I liked Fring, like Catherine, and it really pissed me off because at that point you realize that Walter White was the smartest guy in the room even when he wasn't. I thought, I know this white man, and then he had to kill the brother who actually knew the whole business because Walter White, again, is the smartest guy in the room, even when he's not. So I almost stopped watching the show after White killed Gus Fring for those reasons.
But White didn't kill Gus Frings. Gus Frings kills the Salamanca uncle out of revenge, and it's like a suicide self-sacrifice for his gay lover.
White set up. Right, but that White,
that White set up.
That White set up, yeah.
That White set up, but there's a lot of he lets him get his revenge because he's been just waiting this whole time to kill Salamanca.
So. Yeah, but in the end, since White,
White
showdown between Gus and White,
because so it's racist.
That part, Walter is racist. There you go, but not necessarily the show.
Well, I do have to ask.
I'm not actually serious that Walter's racist. He's just an asshole.
I mean, it is definitely important to figure out whether it is definitely good to figure out whether Walter White was racist because, super sympathetic character otherwise. But if you add racism to that, then no, never mind. I don't like him anymore.
He was sympathetic until he wasn't, though, right? Because he was this broken man when the show starts, and then you realize again that he was this arrogant fuck and that's how he fell practically, right? Those flashbacks give you a sense of that. And then, of course, his relationship with Gus only amplifies that.
I will say that, like, he was, the way people talk about that show is like, oh, this is this like guy like really slowly becoming, like a bad guy. And it's like, yeah, I mean, the first season, he's got the like guy in his basement with like the bike lock around his neck. I mean, that seems like he was pretty vicious when it started.
Well, and he was egotistical from moment one. I mean, he wasn't where the show picks up because he's a broken man at that point.
Look,
but again,
guys,
those flashbacks.
have you ever taught teenagers? It's really depressing when you're passionate about chemistry and they are not. So I totally identified with him as a teacher. I'm not that kind of teacher, but every day you go to work and you feel like you're just pushing a wheel that won't move.
Yeah, I can't compete with the iPhone 14 or whatever it is. 15. I have 14.
I have to ask you guys this question. This is like specifically for you guys. I got this. I have to give Bert Cooper. I have to clear the sample because we were talking about this and he yelled this out as in a conversation. Are people that critique the racial characteristics of horror films part of a cottage industry of aspiring academics and essayists who just want to sound important?
Yes. Yes, that's it.
Yes.
Yes. What?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Seems right.
Yes.
Next.
You guys didn't want to expand on that at all? You're just like, yeah, fuck them. That's it.
I mean, that just kind of seems like Bert spelled it out.
Yeah. I mean, he
There's
did.
nothing else
No,
to
I mean,
say.
I don't know what else to say except to say that there's all this criticism now. There used to be like some serious film critics that people would go to. Now, like everybody's a critic, from Rotten Tomatoes to Vulture to whatever people are reading, and the dearth of really original criticism is made up for by like everyone thinking that content needs to be decoded for progressive or anti-progressive political messages.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is like really tiresome. I mean, we're making fun of it today here, but you were right, Jason, to start us off on this, that Jordan Peele may have started this. And it happened during the pandemic when we were watching a lot of content before and after George Floyd's murder, when I felt like I was being hit over the head by a 2x4, like I was an idiot and I needed to get the message.
There's so many horrible jokes.
The world is racist.
Throw at you.
What?
Yeah. No. I think
I want to add this before you go on, Ben. I want to add this, and you're probably going to be to your point. We have to remember that during the shelter in place, the George Floyd murder happens, and to calm everybody down, Netflix goes, Netflix wants everyone to know that we really do like black people. So here's a bunch of Will Smith movies. and all these movies are coming out to trying to show us that the big evil that we experience as all black people is the evil of police violence, right? Or white people at large. And it was tiresome. Because go ahead.
And you can use the present tense because it hasn't stopped.
Yeah, no, that's definitely also true. So I think there are two things we're talking about here, right? One is the movies themselves, and yes, to Toure's point, present tense, right? That's definitely right. And then the other one is like what Catherine was talking about, that kind of grassroots film criticism that is entirely about whether movies are politically progressive and therefore virtuous or not, which predates, I think, movies catering to them quite as much as they do now. But like, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking here about like, I don't know if you guys remember that movie Coco, which was from 3 years before the pandemic. It's about the Mexican Day of the Dead, and I guess I won't name him here because he might not want to be named, but somebody we know who works in the entertainment industry told me that the part of the reason there were really no controversies about that movie is that they found several of the people on Mexican American Twitter who would be most likely to make a stink about anything that was like objectionable about it, and gave them jobs as consultants on the movie.
Ooh, smart.
Yeah, right.
Smart Disney. Wow. Whew.
Was one of them named Poussin?
I don't know.
Bill Cosby Show joke. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's the producer, his academic friend.
Yeah. Social
Yeah.
psychologist.
Or was it co-creator? Or he
I don't think he was co-creator. He was a consultant, though. By season 2 at the latest, it might have been season 1.
That's why they write Sandra into the script in season 2, because they wanted to show the triumph of parenting with Princeton.
But
the house bigger too.
It is really astonishing. I mean, like, it is maybe worth spending just a second on this, like, kind of what I think some of what Catherine was referring to earlier, just like how that kind of everybody like that kind of like crowdsourced
big Mexico, big Mex. Sorry.
Big Mexico, I like it. Big Mexican. But like that kind of both the sort of crowdsourced film criticism, Rotten Tomatoes, and all that stuff, and also the way that changes the way that like professional film criticism happens. Like, you know, I'm thinking like the kind of movie reviews that you'll see in like, I don't know, like Salon and Slate and shit like that, right? That they have that so much of that stuff becomes like, is this progressive and virtuous, or is it not? In this way that it just really feels like, I don't know, we've just kind of gotten this collective lobotomy about how we like perceive movies and TV shows, and it's like even the sort of ability to kind of see like just like things as basic as a character in a movie saying something doesn't mean that the movie is endorsing it, even if there isn't a second character who immediately shows up to say that it's bad. Like,
no, I know it's such a literal level of reading. Like there's no latent context. Everything is, has to be right out there in a literal way. But I was joking around with people having a panic attack about ChatGPT and like, oh my God, it's going to take everyone's jobs. Look, the culture industry has been producing a lot of dreck before ChatGPT existed that looks like it could have been written by ChatGPT. I mean, and they're all like panicked about architects losing their jobs. Look at your local big box shops. They look like they've been designed by architect ChatGPT. And a lot of this content that's supposed to be progressive sounds like, someone said, ChatGPT, write me a screenplay about a trauma girl who grows up to be a really sassy econ professor.
It's like a horrible film.
No, I mean, it's like a little bit like Everything Everywhere All at Once and Crazy Rich Asians together, but with Constance Wu as our sassy heroine. And then like ChatGPT writes it, and everyone and all the critics are like, yeah, and all the ChatGPT critics are like, oh my God, Asian American representation, sassy. Like the whole idea of like feminism is just having like a sassy heroine. Sassy, I'm so sassy.
Well, there were actually, I did read an interesting paper on that. Do you remember in the mid to late 70s, there was rape as a plot device in a lot of movies. I don't know if it starts with Wes Craven, but he definitely kind of makes it very popular with Last House on the Left, and then followed back If I Spit on Your Grave, Mother's Day. There's too many to name. And in the more modern takes on this, because for some reason people thought, hey, let's redo these rape movies. The woman ends as some sort of sexy heroine. So after she's had this like horrible trauma, then she like rips off the clothes and has guns and is in like, she's scantily clad and she kicks a bunch of ass.
You mean like a promising young woman? Yes. This rape revenge movies. The rape revenge movies are insane. I mean, to
be fair, that was the original I Spit on Your Grave. I mean, other than the sexiness, was pretty much what you're describing, right? I mean, like, like the whole second half of that movie is her kicking ass.
Yeah, there's a lot of ass kicking in those movies, and you're supposed to like the comeuppance to me is like never worth it.
No. I mean, it's an incredibly disturbing movie. I've only
But you
seen
get
that
it.
once.
You get to have it both ways. You get to
Right.
enjoy this voyeuristic violation, and then you get to enjoy the sexy woman exerting her revenge. But I think the most explicit thing, I mean, I do have to, like, I'm exposing my own like television viewing habits, but is that, you know, the first 2, 3 seasons of Game of Thrones was really horrible, lots of rape, you know, lots of incest, whatever, you know, incest, rape, just, you know, it escalates, and it's that feedback loop that Ben was talking about, with the critics or the influencers are talking back to the showrunners, and then suddenly you'll see in around season 4, if anyone has ever done anything bad to a woman in that show, they die or they get castrated or they lose everything. It becomes very, very formulaic. Like, I would be like, oh my God, don't do that to her, don't do that to her, you're dead. And it would just be like it would just be very it was very canned.
Final question. Since we're wrapping, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on this Halloween Eve. I do not live in a neighborhood with children, and sadly, I did not get to hear from my own. And I did know he was a ninja this year, so I'm really, really bummed out about that.
Yeah.
Because if you know me and ninjas,
Do you love ninjas?
I love ninjas more than Toure loves culturally appropriating backdrops.
What can I say?
I wanted to be, my stepmother had a black belt in some martial art that wasn't really that cool, but she had a sword and she could twirl it around, and she took me to see American Ninja when I was a small child, and after that I was like, I'm gonna be a ninja. And I saw American Ninja 2 where the black dude got to be a ninja. Remember that? This is America's anti-ninja force. I wanted to be part of the anti-ninja force, and I never got that.
My son loved ninjas too.
Very sad. Very sad.
Oh.
Ben
you also wanted to always be an architect, but you're never able to pull that off. So for a brief moment, you were a marine biologist instead.
So final question. Final question. People are horrible. I just want you guys to know who the real racists are. Just want you to know that. I was trying to keep it together.
Okay.
Do black horror movies sit in a different cultural place in our hearts?
Well, wouldn't it depend on when?
When they were released?
When would matter? Yeah.
So, sorry, as a different place in our hearts than other horror movies,
Yeah.
or okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, where does Blackula sit in your heart, Ben?
I mean, right at the top. I mean,
right next to Funkenstein, right?
Right, like that's the. Usually, the first thing I think of when I wake up, the last thing before I go to bed.
Scream, Blackula, scream.
Yeah, it's definitely not just the case that I reach for that joke because, like, you know, I think the title is funny and I only know the title, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I guess, right? I mean, it's like so. I think if we're talking about not black horror movies from like you know the 90s, you know, Candy, you know, like the original Candyman or whatever. But
you said Candyman.
What's that?
But you said Candyman.
Oh yeah, Candyman, right? We all love Candyman. Yeah, no, it was it was originally it was going to be called Anti-Racist Man, but then they thought that, you know, the studio said Candyman, you know, it's like really emphasize your main star. Yeah, and but yeah, the original Candyman, for example, right? I don't think fit like, but I think if you're talking about like kind of Jordan Peele era stuff, then like because it's like because it's associated with, you know, people certainly. I mean, you can watch like Get Out or, you know, like as just and, you know, just like enjoy it as a horror movie or whatever. But it's like, I mean, obviously there's a political valence to that on its face, and that is going to be part of how people interact with it. I mean, I don't really know if that's exactly what you're asking or not.
Oh, these are nonsensical questions. I think it's funny when smart people answer.
Could you repeat the question?
Do black movies sit in a different place in your heart? Do they not have the
right
same
above
cultural-
you, right under my diaphragm where I get my indigestion?
See, I would have gone with where the hypertension is located. But...
What are you talking about? Jason, that is like it's just like right here. Right where the under my bra hits. That's just, I don't even know what you're saying, but I think what you're saying is that, like, is it like trying to do, is it elevated horror? Is Jordan Peele trying to be like prestige horror? And I just gotta say, like, Nope was really confusing to me. Everyone said it was horror, it was really great, and I wasn't really that scared. And I think it was so high concept that I just don't think it really came off at all.
So, okay. So, I mean, actually, that's a good clarification. When you say black horror movies, do you mean specifically black elevated horror movies a la Jordan Peele, right? I assume you're not talking about, like, when you say black horror movies, you're not thinking of like Day Shift.
I was thinking of Bernie Casey's Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde. That's why I asked when, right? Because you've got Blackula and Dr. Funkenstein and Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde.
What do you say?
There's Omega Man, but I guess it doesn't count because it's Charlton Heston.
No.
But
that's fucked up.
Sugar Hill.
I thought the black person, Sugar Hill's kind of interesting.
I kind of like Sugar Hill.
We're talking about like the height of 70s black culture.
I'm talking about
like,
But I mean, the 70s blaxploitation films, which you've written on, Jason, and know a lot about. I mean, it's pretty different from the Jordan Peele era horror films.
Yeah.
And the thread, of course, is that the audience, at least much of the audience, is happy to see black faces on the screen dealing with things that are supposed to be black themed stuff. But the Nutty Professor was a horror film too. But they're different types of film, right? Even though there are black horror films.
My issue. This is where that question comes from. It is a silly question. Is that there's people that want to have a certain cultural relevance, and that's kind of what they're fighting for with a lot of this quote unquote representation, right? And they want to sit in the same place. When you talk about horror, they want you to talk about Dr. Funkenstein in the same way you talk about Bela Lugosi, right?
Maybe.
You don't believe that?
Well, Jordan Peele
talk to some of the Negroes
and Keegan, but Key and Peele, when they were on Mad TV, actually spoofed blaxploitation horror films as a regular thing. So it's kind of interesting that Peele did that and then ushered in elevated black horror 20 years later, or however many years it was, 25 years later.
You know what? Anyone can be bought. There's a dollar amount where, Toure, if they offered you
$5 million.
If they offered you a center for anti-racism,
no. He spent a lot of time thinking about it. He's decided.
I worked this out years ago. I worked this out with my students years ago. I told my students, as an American, I have a price, and I shared with them an anecdote about a buddy of mine. I will spare you details, but ultimately ended up passing a course because he gave a professor $78 or something like that, or $86. And I tell this story to my students, and I say, look, as an American, again, I have a price, but it's probably cost prohibitive because you'd have to pay me enough that I could retire. Right. And that's because it's an ethics violation and I would lose my career. So I'd need a minimum of $5 million.
Okay, but what
there's a lot of custom guitars out there.
All right. So what about something like just like they want to give you a center for anti-racism so you can say all the things you don't mean, like you don't lose your career. Couldn't do. There's no price.
No, I'd need more than $5 million for that.
Okay, I said not no price. It's just a much higher price.
I can't imagine the price.
What if your center
as an American, there surely is a price out there, but I can't imagine it.
Ben, do you have the Center for Anti-Semitism that you're trying to get?
Oh wait, $55 million.
Anti-Semitism.
$55
For
million.
research into
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ben Burgis Center for the Promotion of Judeo-Pessimism.
That's a real thing. He
What?
fucking sent me an article about Judeo-pessimism. He said everything's a goddamn pessimism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it
I mean,
called
in all
kvetching?
seriousness, I mean, I think that was like the one guy who wrote the article was like sort of, as far as I know, but like, you know, I actually do think there's like an analogy to like the thing that's dumb about Afro-pessimism and the way that like people will talk about anti-Semitism as if it's this like eternal unchanging thing that's like, you know, that's like, oh, you know, like you say, oh, you know, okay, sure, you think you're safe in America, but the Jews in Germany thought they were safe. It's like you really don't see any disanalogies between these situations, you know, that like anyway. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think 55 million is good. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna outbid that, you know. That's like
Strom, thank you for the super chat. Strom says, "Oh my God, disgusting. No one here is woke. Class deductionists." Triggered, traumatized.
You missed the
hashtag triggered, hashtag traumatized.
I don't think you highlighted the best comment, which was from Kushlook, who says a little while back, Candyman.
That was really good. And that actually reminds me of my opening spiel for a talk that I'm giving and have already given that Jason has read. So I like that a lot.
Candyman, I gotta find that.
I was talking to a friend recently, who's an academic, I won't say where, who was telling me about the chief diversity officer where he works, who makes almost $400,000 a year. And this is a Research One public university, but it's, you know, not a Research One. It's not like Harvard, right? So if they're making $400,000 a year at a Research One public university that relies very heavily on tuition receipts for survival, you can only imagine how much one can make in academia and that gig.
Oh yeah.
And I couldn't imagine doing a job like that for more than 5 years, let's say, right? You always mortgage some portion of your soul with a job. I mean, that's just a reality, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but that's why I like Drag Me to Hell so much.
Yeah. I was just thinking about Drag Me to Hell when you were saying that.
What it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I don't want to say that that's a worthless position because, you know, diversity is a good thing.
Sure.
Maybe not in its current iteration, but I've always supported diversity. And I know I have a number of friends who are diversity officers who are sincerely and appropriately invested in those issues. But you just can't win in that job. And so much of it's basically actualizing a corporate vision of inclusion and diversity that's actually at odds with academic freedom. Right. It's at odds with any sort of inquiry about big issues, right? It's really problematic stuff.
I think
that's a horror.
I think this is the horror that nobody's really been able to put into a narrative, which is that there is in like contemporary professional life this attempt to transform your very inner soul to adapt to the needs of the corporation. And that is fucking scary. Like they want to reach into your heart and change it. They want to reach into your mind and change it to adapt to a corporation. There was even in the classic, you know, gray flannel suit, alienation, organization man, alienation from the 50s and 60s. Those people had an idea that when I went home from work, men usually, I could have like 10 martinis, pass out, or go to Greenwich Village and smoke pot with the bohemians and the gays. But now it's like, no, you're going home, you're working, you're available all the time. What you do, you have to believe in. This is the true horror. Like we're all just living in a nightmare that we don't even know how to describe. That's
part of
Halloween message.
Is the elimination of the divide between the public sphere and the private sphere.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, now we are, you know, it was the case in the civil rights movement era that the expectation wasn't that one would change the hearts and minds of people, but rather to change their behavior, that the state could intervene in how you act in the public sphere as an employer, as an employee, as a shopkeeper, you could still be racist off the clock, right? But while you're in the public sphere, you couldn't behave on it. And that's a reasonable threshold that we have given up on.
And you and other people who are Marxist African-American scholars have commented on this, is that the vagueness of being anti-racist and for diversity within universities actually leaves these jobs they will never achieve their mission. So they're infinite, and there are no concrete demands. Like, I don't care if someone's racist, if they treat me well and they don't have power over me. I don't care what you say. I don't give a shit about you. But if there is, we respect each other's boundaries. You do your work, I do mine. I'm not going to come in and try to retrain you to not have shoji screens, in your background. I'm not going to tell you that that's a little triggering to Asian people. We can respect you to a certain degree and keep away from you. But the whole thing, because I want to have my job, or I want Asian Americans or African Americans to have their jobs, to be treated fairly. I don't care, white person, if you're really racist, I'm not going to have a discussion with you. Let's just be fair. Let's be fair on level of wages and demands and clear-cut policies. This is why, demand for jobs is not on the table for people like Kendi.
I mean, it is.
I've just been, so the reason I haven't said anything for the last few minutes is that I've just been thinking this entire time about how many adjuncts the university could give health insurance for the cost of that one diversity officer every year.
Thank you guys again for hanging out. And I do want you guys to know, as fun as this episode was, I do try to do serious stuff too. And realize this. Do you guys know what'd you call me?
We know that.
Oh.
I didn't call you a name. we know that, honey. We know that,
honey. Do you guys know what, anyone watching right now, do you guys know what second screen viewing is? Do you know what that is? Look at you guys. So advertisers know that people multitask. That's a real thing. People always say it, and it doesn't really mean anything, but that means that while you're doing something, maybe even watching a show on a computer or even listening to a podcast or something, there's a second screen on. And second screen viewing has tons of what we did talk about here, the breakdown of racist movies, of tropes in movies. That's a huge thing for people to watch and consume.
Is Jeffrey Toobin involved in that?
I don't know. I don't know who that is.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's for the best.
I can't say names of people that do this type of work, but yeah, or that type of work. The racist trope breakdowns in every part of pop culture. But it's a big thing that people do consume.
Wow.
Yeah. It's gross. Someone says, Jason, you are my second screen. I believe that.
And gave you the tongue.
I'm sure I'm somebody's second screen.
Yeah.
So he wants to be somebody's first screen. Ladies, Jason doesn't want to be your second screen. He wants to be your primary, okay?
I don't. She's a liar.
No, ladies do not believe him. His heart is open. His DMs are too. I gotta go to dinner.
When you said that you also do serious stuff, I thought that was going to be your lead-in to promoting the stream on Friday.
Oh God, that's going to be so far from serious. Ben and I are going to be back Friday to talk about a piece that he wrote in Jacobin about Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm actually pretty stoked about that. I'm going to try to rewatch as many as possible. I tried to watch another movie that Ben told me about today. About the Indian girl in the jar.
Yeah, it lives inside. The reason I was telling you about it was because it seemed like it was a perfect example of what you were complaining about in the title of the stream, right? So it's this movie that just came out. If you guys haven't seen it, it's it's this Indian American girl in high school, and she's like basically trying to assimilate and be like the white girls in her class. And there's this like demonic Indian spirit that she has to deal with. It's that's in a there was like trapped in a jar and it gets out. Hence the title. It lives inside. And I'll just go ahead and spoil this movie mildly and say that I was actually like, this is definitely in the category that Jason's talking about for this, because it's definitely, I think, feels like it's supposed to be elevated horror, etc. And it is, which I don't necessarily, hate the way that Jason sometimes seems to. I think you have to take it a la carte, right? Some of those movies are good, some of them aren't, but but like it's definitely in that sort of vein. And I don't know. I mean, like, it kind of felt like the message of the movie towards the end was some like really reactionary, like cultural separatism. Like, no, you're like an Indian person. You have to be like off doing your own Indian thing and like not trying to be like these white people.
We have to read this last comment. Thank you very much for the super chat, Johnny Dang. As a recipient of a DEI scholarship for a tech security program, I'm having to be real careful about posting on the Middle East matter.
Be real careful. Be really careful.
Yeah, don't. Hey, just what?
don't
You say stuff to real people. It's way different than posting it on the internet.
Just say things to people. I want to put a plug out for my Substack, Clue Anon, CLIU.
Oh, I will
Anon at
I'll link it in the audio.
Substack.com. I'm doing a reading group that will build up to a reading of the authoritarian personality, so you can all find out how fascist are you, where you score on the F scale. It's about what Ben was talking about earlier about the unchangeable nature of anti-Semitism. I'm actually looking at the historical changing understanding of anti-Semitism from Freud through the Frankfurt School. So
nice. Although before I read this Substack, we have this really important question. Catherine, have you condemned Hamas? Because I'm pretty sure that somewhere in the bombed out.
I think I have, but I will say it right now for you.
Dude,
you're gonna do a condemnation on demand. Yeah, I have because like somewhere in the bombed out rubble of an apartment complex in Gaza, there are two guys who are like putting together rocket launchers, and one of them's like, "Is this okay?" Like, I don't think Catherine Lewis condemned us yet, so I guess it's okay.
I wanted to make is this recorded?
Oh yeah, this is totally recorded.
Oh yeah, okay.
This is
I can't help it. Ben, I condemn Hamas, but I don't condemn Baba Ganoush. Sorry.
This is on the main show. And on that note,
sorry.
I think that's somebody's God telling me. I think you went too far this time.
Did I go too far? Can you put it?
No. This is all live. We're doing it live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Catherine, I want you to hear this because this is the sound of the Regents coming after you.
Yeah, I like I like Jem's comment. Has it been longer than 4 hours since you last condemned Hamas?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you lose tenure. There you go.
You know what I say? Come at me, bro.
Thank you guys for hanging out. The link for the champagne room is already up. I didn't send it to you guys because I figured you guys all wanted to keep your jobs. Does anybody want to hang out in the champagne room?
I will happily hang out in the
It's going to be
room.
a slew of bad jokes and vulgarity. If you guys want to hang out,
Jesus, Jason, I already said yes. You don't have to keep selling me.
You had him at hello.
Ray, are you hanging out?
Send me the link. I'm not sure that I can, but
okay.
I kind of want to dip in.
Okay.
All right. I have to go to dinner, but
okay.
Bye, guys. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Peace.
Everyone. Peace. Bye.